grazing lands, and as well halting deforestation. So all those issues are really important, and we need to move forward by integrating the issues together. So far, we have measures tackling one issue by one, but in fact, it's the systems view that is needed. This plan initiative that concern knowledge and science include also resource management, agroecology, and they have key areas like advancing research, adopting new technologies, building capacity, strengthening policies and institutions. One area which is making rather rapid progress is about how can we integrate food system transformation with climate action. So this is reflected by the fact that 168 countries have already included food and agriculture in their nationally determined contributions for the Paris Agreement. And as we have heard from Indonesia and certainly from other countries already in this meeting, the Convergence Initiative works on the alignment of food system transformation with climate action through convergence action blueprints and through convergence dialogues. And there was an interesting FAO report on transforming food and agriculture through a systems approach, which echoes to me the Nexus report of the IPBES and identified 6 core elements about systems thinking, systems knowledge, systems governance, systems doing, and so on. And when we go through this report, we see how it can help, including environmental contribution in the national pathways. For instance, understanding the environmental interdependencies and trade-offs, promoting the use of data and modeling, supporting cross-sector collaboration, facilitating integrated actions like agroforestry, sustainable procurement, fisheries management, reallocating resources, as explained by Schengen already, and enabling adaptive management and evaluation of ecological transition. So we believe that based on such systems approach, we actually call upon decision makers to meet the growing food demand while ensuring the integrity of all the planetary boundaries. And we believe that the current summit can offer momentum to all countries to update their national pathways for food systems transformation with a strong science input. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean-Francois. Now you have heard from 2 national conveners and from 3 members of the Scientific Advisory Committee. And they have outlined and described very many exciting given examples of how we can work with food systems transformation, but through many different pathways, and how we can work united together and also have the different the different types of work converge and work together to make a stronger transformation of food systems that serve all, leaving no one behind. Many of you here sitting come from different countries with your own examples, and you can ask now. I invite you now to discuss with our 5 presenters and ask questions that you would like to hear if they more on their work and more they can tell you about the country examples. Thank you. Nicola, you're going to, yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. So here's a more the interactive part of the session. If you would like to pose any questions or provide examples of your work, feel free. We do have 15 minutes, and that's a nice thing. All the sessions normally we're rushing to the other room. So let's take the opportunity to have organic dialogue here. I see one hand here, 2 there. Okay, we can perhaps.
Thank you. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. My name is Francisco Rosado Mai. I am a Yucatec Maya, and I'm part of the Indigenous Peoples Food Systems Coalition. I have a question and a comment, if it is possible. My first question is, in the intervention of all the panelists, I could read between lines that they are interested in incorporating indigenous knowledge in the process of transformation. Was there any example that you could elaborate more a little bit on it? if I am correct in assuming that there is some the reading I may know. In the second in the second part is my comment. We heard in a number of times in their interventions the term science policy interface, and when we deeply think about that concept, it means that the only knowledge that is available to do the interface with policy is science. Many people do not consider indigenous knowledge as science. Some people do, some people don't. But if if the truth is that indigenous knowledge is actually not scientific because it has other ways of constructing knowledge, how about instead of using only science policy interface, using knowledge policy interface, which brings different questions. How to validate that knowledge, but that's a different thing to discuss. You see, but we live at a different dimension by saying knowledge policy interface. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. I think we will take another one from the other side, please.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Tugubi Ndovi from National Planning Commission. I'm a research specialist there. Mine is just to appreciate whether it could be handled as a comment or a question, but I know that issues of coordination are very key. And as much as we talk about that, we can, as countries, we have to set up a proper coordination mechanism. But I just wanted to learn from you that what challenges did you encounter? Because like for Malawi, we face the challenge of having the national convening power. So I heard from the presentation that you have like a setup like in agriculture or something, and you hope that maybe food systems would be incorporated in that particular area. So with that experience, to what extent are you coordinating the players in the food systems space? And the other thing that I wanted to appreciate is that sometimes there is agreeing with what the previous speaker said, there is a gap between what is being researched on and the uptake given to policymakers, because we can do studies, we can come up maybe with interventions, we'll come up with particular data that states, I heard that there was something about 73%, but are the policymakers or the people that we put in power really willing to accept? And what measures have we really put in place to make sure that the interventions that we are coming up with are being integrated? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Relevant, super relevant questions. Do we have another? We'll take three. It's always a very risky 5. So I'll do one here and then we do a quick round, please.
Thank you. My name is Makonnen. I am from Policy Studies Institute, a researcher at Policy Studies Institute. Two of the presenters actually they underline the importance of affordability in the implementation of this food system transformation, we can say. One thing in the 90s, in the 80s, 70s, and so on, there was a tendency to store food, and meaning that's a buffer system, where the poor usually access at affordable prices. They buy it during when it's cheaper and then distribute it at a low price to the poor. How is this system working these days? Has it continued, or these kinds of intervention from policy perspective? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will give back to the panel. And by the way, I'm Nicole DePaul. I'm the technical officer. You know, we're a very agile team at the Hub, so we're ready to support whenever needed. So big pleasure to be with all of you. So the panel, we have 3 interesting questions here. Of course, the indigenous knowledge, very much connected with the science policy society interface, which I think responds a little bit on this issue. Issues of coordination, and of course, a lot of on the gap between what is research, what reaches our policymakers, and finally here on affordability. So I will maybe, I don't know who would like to start from this order here. I don't know if Minister, you have a comment on this, since you did have a science policy society to visit. I had the honor to visit your country, so I think you're very well placed to have a comment on this, and then I'll give to her. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nicole, and thanks to fellow panelists. And the question, I think, was talking about science interface, and of course, also there was a question about the indigenous knowledge. And like in the Gambia's context, we have a committee, that is the Agriculture and Natural Resource Coordination Committee, and that is both food and non-food actors that coordinates most of these issues. However, in the indigenous knowledge issue, the country has what we call the Council of Elders or Council of Traditional Chiefs, and these people are highly involved in our project formulation and project implementation. And of recent, our research department, that is National Agricultural Research Institute, they've been fighting against fruit fly, which is a major challenge for our fruit trees, especially for the mangoes. And one of the sources for their inspiration has been from the traditional knowledge in the country. And I think these are some of the examples that I can give of the involvement of traditional knowledge in our implementation of our projects and programs. But of course, there was also a mention of affordability in terms of foods. In the Gambia, our National Food Security Corporation has a program of bulk buying, and they do this so that they have a dent on the prices nationally in the country. But also, we have a National Food Reserve um, program that is just trying to kick off as part of the ECOWAS Food Reserve program. And what this does is have a lot of food during the harvest season, stock it, food banking, and release it during the lean season so that the prices are managed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. No, just about indigenous knowledge. Thank you for the question. It is very relevant. More and more, I think, in the international panels we have on biodiversity, like IPBES, but also in IPCC, we do realize the value of indigenous knowledge. This is possibly a bit difficult when you think about a global scale, because indigenous knowledge is obviously anchored in some local situations. And that's where more and more we see the value of place-based innovation that is co-designed with stakeholders that have their knowledge and have this tradition. So thinking about place-based innovation, we call it sometime when there is an input of science, living labs, could be a way to move forward together. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of points. One is indigenous knowledge. Just about 2 months ago, there was a big conference in Yunnan. So local knowledge, local practices have helped to protect the biodiversity, help to enhance nutrition, and also help to build the climate resilience. So that local knowledge has been part of the policy making in Yunnan. I think Shakantana, you were there. Now, coordination mechanism, my view is probably that coordination mechanism should come from Prime Minister or the President's office. Aquaculture, I mean, our colleague here from Gambia. So I think if somewhere above the ministry, that coordination will be much more powerful. In the case of China, we have a new sort of deputy prime minister who is in charge of health and agriculture. The first question he asked us is, how can agriculture help to deliver healthy, nutritious foods? Well, that's the natural coordination is already there. Then finally, I think the affordability, yes, absolutely. Here, increasing productivity is still very critical. Then you mentioned about Ethiopia, the social protection schemes, including reserves, strategic reserve is so critical. Unfortunately, for the last several, maybe 1 or 2 decades, the strategic reserves of many countries have declined. We learned a huge lesson. So how can we rebuild the strategic reserve to use that, let's say, well, on the one hand, to provide food to people who are during the crisis, and also help to build a resilience for the long run. So absolutely very critical.
Thank you very much, Professor Shagin. So it's obviously, I know there are many questions here, but we do want to hear from the floor. But maybe very quick, if you could introduce yourself, make your comment, one here and one there, and then we'll have to close. Very extreme, please.
Thanks for this. Fabrice de Klerk with CGIAR and EAT and Atlantic Commission. So thrilled to have so many commissioners here, and also lead author of the food chapter for the Nexus assessment. So Jean-Francois, I really appreciate your comment on planetary boundaries for here on Lapel. We will be publishing the food system budget of planetary boundaries this October. But one thing that we found in the Nexus assessment, and Schengen, you've referred to this as well, is that dietary shifts are the biggest single intervention we can make that impact both health and environment. But we continue to think of food-based dietary guidelines as a consumption-based approach. How can we begin to use national food-based dietary guidelines to guide not just consumption, but agricultural policy, trade policy, and subsidies, Schengen, I would include in that, supporting those foods that are currently underconsumed, but which would benefit to health.
Thank you very much. At the end of the
Good afternoon. My name is Faris Mubarak. I'm a cybersecurity and ISO standards specialist. My question is to all the speakers. In many places, science and knowledge has been mentioned. However, I would like some sort of elaboration. What type of technology is being used, in these countries to address, the issues with the food safety and all associated technology has not been mentioned at all. So I'd like, the speakers to address, briefly what is being used in terms of technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So very briefly from the panel, I saw a question for you, Jean-Francois, and if others would like to comment, please, briefly.
Yes, thank you, Fabrice, because I think it was more a comment than a question, really. But we are all progressing along the same lines, I think. And this science which is developing is really getting out of the silos and showing the value of integrated understanding of agriculture, food, nutrition, health, and climate, and environment, biodiversity, and so on. So that's really the way we are all moving, progressing. And I think we have to now suggest that we could help more into the design and implementation of the national pathways by having this dialogue that we have today with the national conveners. It is so important. And so as the SCC, we are looking forward to this perspective. Thank you.
Regarding this food safety issues, I'd like to highlight that what some of the issues we face at the country level, that we have good policies, but in terms of implementation, as I mentioned, that we always struggle, and we also we haven't talked. Schengen mentioned about the capacity building. This is really important, that how you develop the capacity, not only the capacity at the top level, it has to be the capacity at the community level to understand that where the loss is happening or where the waste is happening. Because in one of the studies from Bangladesh, when I saw that the food waste is happening, I was quite surprised, because as a person from Bangladesh, I live in there, and we try not to waste any food. We just share whatever we have appropriately cannot use. So that means that we are actually wasting food, and we are not taking it into consideration. The science evidence is there, but we are not taking this into consideration. So we need to develop capacity within the country in terms of not only handling the food safety issues, about knowledge and how we are going to integrate that, implement it, is really important. And investment, resource allocation, which is almost missing in many of the areas, especially in our countries. So this is one of the things I would like to respond. And I would like to go back to that indigenous knowledge, because in Bangladesh, we have traditional knowledge as well. Indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge are different. So indigenous communities, they have their own knowledge. I think my colleague from Mexico, he was referring to that. And traditional knowledge also exists in our country. So what I have seen in our food system transformation, I don't have much idea about indigenous knowledge, but I know that traditional knowledge from the farmers are being integrated within our country. And this is really important to understand that what farmers they have been doing. They are resource. I mean, they are like a researchers. They're producing every day different level of knowledge as facing the climate vulnerabilities, this and that. They have their own knowledge. And as the researchers, we need to find out and we need to take this knowledge to our policymakers and practitioners to integrate it. This is really important. Thank you.
Right. On dietary guidelines, I think today we used to think from farm to fork. Today is other way around. We decide what we should eat, healthy and nutritious diet, and of course affordable. Then derive from backward to the whole value chain. And on technology, yes, indeed, I think different countries must have different type of technology. So here, we are working between China and Africa to see what sort of technologies from China that can be shared with Africa. I mean, our African Union Commission is here. So I think that has to be tailored to the local conditions, local economy, and affordability of certain technologies. So biotechnology, AI, yes, they are great, but whether the poor countries will be able to afford maybe some of the easy to use, low hanging fruit technologies, processing probably will be much more useful in this short run.
Thank you so much for posing the questions and the comments, and thanks to the panelists for giving your views. As I said, the SAC, the Scientific Advisory Committee, informs the hub, the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub. And many of you who are sitting here come from countries and maybe have relations to your national conveners and to your national pathways. It would be good if you can look at the website we have and the members of the SAC that we have, and get to know them, get to talk with them, and build up that link between national pathways, governments, and the SAC members, because there's so much that we can do together. And therefore, I urge you to look at that connection between the SAC members and the countries they come from. All I would like to say is that we, as the SAC, we confirm our commitment to the UN Food Systems stock take now, and confirm our commitment going forward to 2030. And I'm sure many of you all will be going forward to beyond 2030. And therefore, we thank you for being here with us today, and thank you for giving us your comments, listening, and looking forward to working together with you as we move forward. Thank you.